Interesting. I've got some old egg boxes that I've collected. Actually, I used these last year. I keep them for this job, and they're just plain old egg boxes, nice and simple. And then the seed potatoes. What you'll notice on the seed potatoes, you'll have one side with eyes and little bits to grow, and then the others might have some, but they got less. So the one with the most on them, put them facing up in the egg box. I tend to only use the big ones out of here because the small ones, they will come, but the big ones are better. So, and try to make it so they don't touch each other, and then just plonk them in your egg box like so. Now the area they need to be in a dry, cool, but definitely frost free. So what I'm in my potting shed. The temperature at the moment in here is, I've got a thermometer, it's about 8 degrees, and I've got some fleece here that I'll put over it if I know we're going to get a frost, just to make sure, even though it's indoors, it's unlikely to get frosty in here. However, just in case, I'll pop a bit of fleece over them. So now I've plonked them all in the egg boxes. The reason why you can try and get, it doesn't matter if you do touch a bit, but the reason why you try not to is that they don't start reacting with each other a little bit and mold and things. So you can see that I've got most of them in here now, and then the few spares I put out. I'm going to be planting in the region of about 80 to 90 potatoes. I've got a patch sorted out for them in the garden. So I've done, in the boxes here, I've got about 86, and there's another 10 here. Anything I don't use, I'll probably give to my kids to grow in buckets or something. And we're near the end of January, so it normally takes about 4 to 6 weeks for them to chit, which should give me the opportunity then to plant them around the end of March, early April, depending on the weather. Now, just so you're aware what chits are, these little things there will grow to about 1 centimetre or 2 long, and it just starts them off well when you put them in the ground, because that's what's going to be, those things will be where the potatoes are going to grow from. And that's it. So I'll leave these here. As I said, if it gets a bit chilly, I'll put a bit of fleece over them. Apart from that, I shall leave them here for a number of weeks. Okay, most the seeds I grow will be from February and March into April. However, there is one set of seeds I tend to start in January, and that's because they need a long growing season, and that's chili peppers. So I'll show you what I'm doing with them. Now, if you're sowing seeds in January, you need some warmth. Now, you can either sow them in the house, although my wife doesn't let me. I did manage to do that first year, but I've been banished out here now since, because all the windowsills were full. However, if you're going to do them in a outdoor room, then what I have here in my potting shed, I have a plastic, basically it's one of those plastic greenhouses, but they're on this side. And then what I've got here, I've got a heated rail there, which is about, I think it's about an 80-watt heater, so it's low. I've got 2 heated propagated trays. I've only turned one on, and I've got a thermometer showing me the current temperature inside the tray. Now, what I'm going to do, and also I have a light source, which I've got on a timer to extend the day, so because at the moment it's too dark, so as you can see, it gives me some daylight. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you, I'm going to sow some chili seeds, and I'm going to put them in the heated propagator with a plastic lid over the top, and I'll have the thermometer inside as well, which will tell me what the temperature is. The thermometers I'm using are all connected to a thing in a house, so I got the luxury of being able to see what the temp is from the house rather than to come out. If you haven't, just use a normal thermometer. Right, so let's get cracking. Right, because they're chilies, you don't have to go mad on how many seeds you sow. I tend to grow probably 3 plants, or 2 plants. This time I've got 2 different varieties. I've got jalapenos and I've got cayenne peppers. So I'm going to probably have 2 plants of each, which means I'm only going to sow about 8 of these to allow for things going wrong, rather than a whole tray of them, because you'll just end up wasting them. So I've got those there. I've got some compost here, and I'm going to add to the compost some vermiculite. Now, I bought this from basically from a garden centre. This one is a Westland one, is vermiculite, and what it does, it does 2 things really. What I tend to do is mix a bit in with the compost, which helps drainage, so a handful of that, and then what I'll be doing as well is adding it on the top, because what sometimes happens is that when the plants start growing, if there's any dampness on the thing, they sometimes damp off, and then you end up with them dying away. Whereas vermiculite helps stop that. It's not so bad with these ones, but it's particularly good for cucumbers, which really don't like having any damp on their stem. But we'll cover cucumbers later on. Fill in my compost. Take out any big lumps. There we go. And then the next one. And any little bits of twig. I'm not using any special compost. This is just common compost you can buy from a garden centre. It's not peat free, this one, but you can have peat free. Whilst I do tend to compost, I've got compost bins, I don't tend to use it for seed. I normally dig that in the garden. On the packet it tells you how to sow them. This one, which is the cayenne pepper, says 1/4 inch deep in a tray of compost, and keep temperature roughly 15 to 20 degrees, hence it's going in the heated propagator, and then pot on when large enough to handle. Now I'm doing them at these little plugs because you can grow them on in the plugs as well. So what I tend to do is to put 2 or 3 in each one. So let's pop it in one. And then what I'll do is just thin them out to the strongest one, and let it carry on growing in here, because that's why I tend to do them in plugs. And then when they're big enough, they'll go into 3-inch pots, and then either into the final pot where I grow them, or I'll be putting them into a grow bag. I've done both. So if you think I'm only really interested in a couple of plants, and I'm growing on the assumption that not all these seeds will come, I'll have a surplus even doing it this way. And of course, you can either give the surplus to your neighbours or whatever, or to your kids if they want to grow their own as well. Just covering over with a little bit of compost. And as I mentioned before, what I tend to do is to put a little sprinkling of vermiculite over the top, so that when they come up, they don't damp off. Right, just water and label them, and then I'll do the next ones. Right, here are the seeds. When it comes to watering them, I tend to use water in a can with quite a fine rose. and give them a good water to get the seeds going. There we go, that's all they'll need. And then so they're in the propagator now, and I've got the temperature bit in, the thermometer in. So if I put a lid over the top, now according to this, and then I shall, if you look, the lights on as well to give them some extra light. Then according to the seed packet, they'll come up between 10 and 14 days. So we'll come back and have a look.